For the introduction, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very happy to be here to present some results from our still ongoing research project. Maybe you're wondering why is there talk about the media, what's the relevance of the media when we talk about big data in a session on ethics, and then maybe I will introduce, briefly explain why this talk is important for all of you. I guess most of you are here on the left side doing big data, convinced of the interesting opportunities to improve business, to heal illnesses, etc. But you have to be aware that you're part of an elite. You're part of a technical elite. You're developing this new technology, these new applications, and this technology and these products have to be accepted by the people here on the right side, the general population, consumers without a university degree, without a high education, but who have to accept that big data is in one way or another attractive for them, useful for them, preventing them better products, better prices, etc., without harming their personal values, their ethical values. So that's the reason why I'm probably here in this session on ethics. Ethics in the sense not of a kind of legally binding code that you have to do something or that you have to avoid something as a company, for example, but ethics in the sense of individual ethics, consumer ethics. What do people accept and where is the limit of their level of acceptance? So why are the media important? Of course, they have a kind of a translation job between technical elites, like you, for example, and the general population. So what is big data? What are the applications? How is privacy protected, etc.? Most people learn that from the media and not from you directly or from any other individual or organization. And that's what we investigated in this project. We did many other things also, but this is kind of the general logic that I will explain now. Okay, so we have a project, I will present some results from a media analysis, but also from a survey we did, a representative population survey, and I will finish with some conclusions. Now, this presentation is part of a large project where the head sits here in the second row, Markus Christen. I guess most of you know him, and he was also an author of the presentation that we just heard. The title is Big Data and Insurance Between Solidarity and Personalization. One specific industry, but what I'm going to present is rather general. I will touch the issue of insurance, but it's mainly on the general issue of big data. And in this project, we are interested in kind of understanding the ethical and legal challenges. We want to know how customers think about it, how designers think about it, and we also want to identify recommendations and also develop some guidelines and industry standard, a kind of a similar effort that you just heard in the presentation before. Who is the team? We are a large team, as you can see. Markus Christen is the head. I'm here a member from this team, from the University of Applied Sciences in Chur, and we have also the legal representatives from law discipline, and we have 3 work packages. And what I'm going to present is just here, work package D12 and D13, the media content analysis and the survey, just to give you kind of the big picture. Now, what's the background and what are the research questions in the media analysis? As I tried to explain in the beginning, media have a double role. On the one hand, they are kind of indicator of culture change. So if you want to know what were the hot issues in the 1950s, it's a good idea to read the media, the newspapers, etc., what they wrote about in this time. So that's one perspective. If you compare cultures, for example, then you can use the media to compare them. And the other role of the media is also to influence, to inform, to kind of help people in shaping their values and shaping their opinions with regard to any issue, also to new issues like big data. So in a certain sense, the media are kind of early indicators of culture change, and of course the media also kind of an indicator of what kind of changes might happen in the population. It's not very simple, just if the media write bad about an issue that everybody thinks this is a bad issue. It's not so simple, but it gives at least some indication which direction public opinion could go. So what did we investigate with research questions? First, we wanted to look at what are the opportunities and risks that are mentioned in newspapers with regard to big data. So what's kind of the issue, how is it presented? What frames can be derived from the newspaper content analysis? Frames are kind of interpretive pattern that simplify a complex issue and try to tell kind of an intuitive story that people can also keep in mind. What are cultural differences between Europe and the US? Europe here now kind of represented by Switzerland only. We have to kind of, we are a European country, we're not a member of the European Union, but nevertheless we're kind of shaped by the European culture. So what's kind of the transatlantic divide? We often hear that the US, the Silicon Valley, they are ahead of everything, they are very innovative, they like change, and the Europeans are kind of like conservative, etc. Is it true, and how can you explain also these differences? That was one research question. And the last one was, how did the frames in the media change over time? Is there a certain trend? Is it getting more and more critical? Is it always the same distribution of frames? How is it changing over time? So, how did we do that? Just a word about the frames. Frame is a kind of key term in communication science. Frames as a communication pattern that, as I said, simplifies complexity, tells a certain story, a narrative. Frames include a certain problem definition, a causal interpretation, a moral evaluation. Is it good or bad? That's also important for a frame. And also kind of a treatment or recommendation. This might be business as usual, we don't need any changes, we can trust the industry, or we need ethical codes, or we have to stop this, big data is a very bad thing, etc. This could be a specific recommendation. Okay, now let's see how we did this. We run a content analysis of 6 newspapers, 3 in Switzerland and 3 in the US. You see here the names of the newspaper. We tried to have a kind of a similar approach with regard to the selection of the newspaper. So we chose in each of the countries one elite newspaper, the NZZ and the New York Times, one kind of mainstream newspaper, Tagesanzeiger and USA Today, and one tabloid newspaper, Blick and the New York Post, to cover the whole range of newspapers that are out there. And we also will compare whether these newspapers differ with regard to the frame, of course. As you can see, it's an issue for the elite newspapers. Those are raw numbers. So in the New York Times, you have 237 articles on the issue, and in the New York Post, in those 7 years of investigation, you have 2 articles. So it's not a hot issue in the tabloid, nevertheless, at least 10 articles in the Blick. Maybe you don't like these tabloid papers, maybe you think they're stupid, they are kind of misleading the population, but they have the high readership, so it's really important to have also look at this kind of media. Okay, we did a content analysis, a manual content analysis. People, human beings, students were reading these articles, were coding them according to a specific scheme. We were saying this is the issue, this is a positive or negative evaluation, etc. So this is not big data. The analysis was really kind of manual, standard communication science approach, which can be done with 500 articles. If there were more, this would be more problematic. Okay, now the results. We found 5 frames, and as you can understand, differentiating only 5 frames is much more easier than if you say every newspaper article is totally different than the other one. We found these frames by means of a cluster analysis. This is a statistical procedure which simplifies a space with n dimensions to, according to the proximity of the cases, which articles are similar in this n-dimensional space, and we basically find 5 groups that are similar but still sufficiently different. Okay, so what are these 5 frames? The first one we labeled, and the software tells you only this is cluster number 1, and then you have to make sense. Now, what's this cluster about? So the first cluster is about, or frame is about research, medicine and business models, medical advancement, new business model, analysis of computer behavior. You could also label this frame as a kind of fundamental innovation, things like personalized medicine, etc., which can change the whole way how we think and investigate medical illnesses, and also what kind of therapies we look at. This is really a totally new dimension of not only of big data in the technical sense, but also of the medicine, of health insurance, etc. So this is the first one. The second one is focusing on kind of negative aspects of big data, abuse of data, breadth of data protection, instant transmit handling of, all the things that we just learned in the last talk that you shouldn't do. This is also visual, of course, here. The third one is focusing on product innovation, product improvement, exchange of knowledge, analyzing consumer behavior. And then you have two, this one is rather focusing on incremental innovations. You know, you have a process like logistics, you have to send your trucks through the country. How can you improve this specific process with big data? You don't change the whole industry. The trucks are still driving, they're doing their job, etc. But how can you avoid unnecessary trips, for example? This is kind of a process driven. And the last, of course, is also often the marketing optimization. Traditional marketing did operate with mass communication. One spot on TV fits all, it's the same spot. You get the same advertisement in the newspaper, no matter whether you're interested in it or not, whether you have a car or not, whether you like wine or not. Of course, with big data approaches, you can increase the efficiency of advertising to, if you make advertisements for those people that really want to buy the products. So those are the 5 frames. We did the analysis, the cluster analysis, in both countries at the same time. So these frames exist in both countries, Switzerland and US. Now, what are the differences between the two countries? Here's the distribution also. This first frame, research, medicine, etc. That's the largest one. The second one is number 2, etc. So you see that the second one is kind of focusing on this negative aspect, and this is about a quarter of the media coverage. And the other 4 frames have a focus on positive aspect. So the media picture of big data is rather positive. Now let's see at the distribution between the cultures and the time. This is now the media coverage in the US, and as you can see, it was peaking in 2013 as an issue in the media, and after that the media coverage went strongly down. Those are percent, so it went also down in absolute numbers, and the coverage over time is more or less equal. As you can also see, this negative frame, maybe you would think, yeah, if Americans are positive and optimistic, and they don't discuss negative aspects, etc. They ignore them. That's not the case. The second frame of use of data here is also quite strong. Here it's not neglected in the media coverage in the US. Now let's have a look at Switzerland here. First of all, you see a delay. The peak of coverage was maybe 2017, rather late, and you see also a different pattern. The frame of product innovation is much more prominent, and in the US, yeah, well, no, it's also about the same. But what's really strongly visible is in the first wave, because there was a focus on the negative aspects, and after that there was kind of a certain change of mind, a certain learning process, and after that they were focusing also on kind of the application of big data and kind of also positive aspects of that. Overall, in Switzerland, there were the negative frames were mentioned more often than in the US, where there was a little bit more of the positive framing, but nevertheless it was also quite a balanced picture in the US. They're not so simple thinking. Of course, it's the New York Times, which had a big share, and of course there are also articles that are dealing with this issue on a high and differentiated level. Now, what can we learn from all this? We also wanted to know, of course, now what's the connection to the public, and for this we run a survey in both countries with a representative sample, and since I don't have any much more time, I also want to go rather quickly through this. We wanted to find out how much are people willing to share data. Here are the research questions. To what extent and with which intentions are customers willing to share data? Why is this important for big data analysis? If every consumer or most of the consumers decide not to share their data, let's say with a hospital or with a health insurance or with whomever, then of course you have a problem with your big data analysis because your data is not complete or is lacking maybe in very important individuals, and you can run a high quality data analysis. And the second question was, to what extent does trust influence this information sharing behavior? Are there differences, or is it just kind of a continuum of attitudes? Okay, so this is the big data, the survey, and we run two-factor analysis, one on trust. We had about 10 organizations, and people had to say whether they trusted those organizations, that they deal carefully with their data. And we could simplify this long list of questions to two dimensions. One was trust in general institutions like government, media, and also the insurance. People have trust in insurance, that they deal fairly and safely with their data. And the other factor was whether you trust in the big internet companies or not, with this acronym GAFA, Google, Apple, Facebook, Amazon, etc. or not. So this is what was also an interesting result. Who do you trust? And the second question was, why do you share data? Maybe if you are working in big data analysis, you don't think about it, but from a consumer perspective, there are various purposes and kind of rewards also if you share data or not. And yet also there are a long number of questions, and this could be reduced by factor analysis to 4 intentions: to influence others, you know, kind of the political game, if you want to say it like that; to access information passively, kind of not reading the newspaper, but you're reading on Facebook anything; monetary reason, get an attractive service for free, or get a discount for another service; and just for fun, to have fun, to meet others, etc. So those were the two factors. And with those two factors, we ran a regression model. We wanted to explain why are people willing to share. Are they willing to share information? We had one model with a generalized information sharing index, no matter what kind of information it was. We had a second model focusing on factual information. How old are you? What's your job? Are you a man or a woman, etc. And a third model focusing on the sharing of emotional information. What's your political view? What's your opinion on something? How do you review other companies, etc.? What's your sexual orientation? Very personal data. And running these 3 models showed us that the first model, generalized information sharing, here the trust in Google, etc. is very important. It's also important that you want to influence others. And it's important that those people also care a lot about fun. It's just fun to share information, and those people share information in a very general sense. The second model can be labeled as a kind of more, rational is maybe the wrong word, but maybe more strategic approach. You share information in order to influence others with regard to factual information, but it's not fun, you don't do it for monetary reasons, etc. You have a kind of a very specific intention to do this. And the third factor, the third model shows that the sharing of emotional information needs a lot of trust, obviously. You have to trust Facebook if you tell your home stories, etc., and publish your private pictures. People do it also to influence others, and of course it's also for fun. So this idea of sharing information, sharing data with companies, with others, it's not kind of a one-dimensional thing, but people make differences, differentiate very much with regard to the purpose and also with regard to the organizations with whom they share data. Okay, yeah, I mean, this is kind of a summary. Maybe just an explanation also on the two differences. The US can, of course, be considered as a kind of technology leader. Most applications in big data come from the US. Most technologies, universities, etc. are leading with regard to that. Without offending anybody here in the room, I think Switzerland is rather a technology follower, is a little bit later in a certain sense. Of course, we want to catch up, etc. But in this sense, we are rather a technology follower, and this is also represented in the media debate that follows with a certain delay to the US debate. And maybe this point I didn't expand on it, but in the media there's a kind of a dominant perspective of the big data industry. Of course, they have lots of PR people, they care about their media image, they make efforts to have a positive image, and the media, to a strong extent, also represent that and kind of try to follow this positive framing of the big data industry. So, I'm done. Thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to your questions.
Thank you very much, Urs.